Amen. That was our praise team with the spirited songs that I hope you enjoyed. Now we have reached a part of the program where we will be having our youth talk. And tonight's discussion will be on sexual assault, particularly with a little bit more focus in the church. But we're going to have a very engaging discussion, and we hope that you, our viewers, will be tuned in and sharing your comments and suggestions as well. Odie, do you mind introducing who is on our panel for tonight's discussion?
All right, so for tonight's discussion, we have with us our very own Grace and Samuels, as mentioned before. We also have Kayla,
Ellis.
Ellis,
Yes.
and also Rabita Collins and our own brother Hansel Gordon as well, right? And so we'll be having this discussion on, as Grayson said, sexual assault. Now, one of the things that is asked is what is sexual assault, right? Sexual assault. Sexual assault is the illegal or sexual contact that usually involves force on a person without consent or is inflicted upon a person who is incapable of giving consent because of their age or physical or mental capacities, right? And so and it can, right. So that is the definition for sexual assault. So what I want to ask is, or viewers, when we hear the term sexual assault, what's the first thing that comes to mind? You know, oftentimes words elicit images in our minds, and I want to know, what comes to mind when you hear sexual assault. I think I'm gonna start with Kayla on this one.
What comes to my mind when I hear the word sexual assault? It is something that I wouldn't want on myself or wish on anybody. Um, it is an act of violence which can cause hurt in many ways we cannot imagine.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Rabita,
Okay.
you want to jump in?
Well, I wanted to hear from Rabito before I jumped in
Yes,
because well, yes, Rabito.
yes. Pardon me if I ask you to repeat the question again.
All right.
Okay.
So when you hear the term sexual assault, what comes to mind?
Okay, so according to the definition that you have just given,
Uh-huh.
it actually states that a person being victimized, or the perpetrator causing this person to do activities or to participate in activities that is forceful in terms of sexual behaviors. No, sexual assault, you have different types, and pardon me, you have different types of sexual assault. And sexual assault is also can be termed as sexual abuse or sexual violence. And so this is what happens when a person is is actually sexually assaulted by someone who they might be very acquainted with, or a stranger, or somebody in the neighborhood.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rabita. Thanks for your contribution. Before you proceed, Odine, you had
Uh-huh.
initially asked the viewers what comes to mind when you hear the term sexual assault. And someone typed in the chat, Randale typed, that catcalling comes to mind. And that is very true. I don't know if the men might have experience with it, but I'm sure a lot of women, whether on the chat or in our on our online platform, can attest to having some experience with catcalling. So, Rabito, when you had said that there are different types of sexual assault, maybe people view it in a different light, and when people get catcalled, they view it as sexual assault. What do you think, Elder Gordon? What do you think about the different types of sexual assault? What comes to your mind?
Okay, for me, I want to broaden it in terms of, well, not just confine it to assault, but offenses as is described by law. So we're talking about, as would have been stated earlier, any kind of unwanted advance or any type of unwanted behavior that comes with any kind of sexual connotation. So it it is very broad, and when you take a look at the Sexual Offences Act, it speaks to a raft of stuff that could be classified as sexual assault.
Okay.
One of the questions that I want to ask, Graceland, right? You mentioned earlier that, maybe men don't experience some of the things. And normally, when we think of sexual assault, we often think of women as the victims, right?
Right.
So I just
And the
wanted to
perpetrators.
correct. So I just wanted to add that dynamic as well, because I want to find out from our viewers, especially Brother Jordan, what has been his experience with men being the victims of sexual assault, and why is it important for the church to weigh in on this?
Okay, the incidences of men been on the receiving end or been the victim is minimal, minuscule in comparison to female. However, there, in case of males, when males are the victims, it's usually younger males, like teenagers or persons who are, basically under parental control. In cases where men are the victims,
Mhm.
because of our macho nature, we tend not to want to report incidents of that nature because for different reasons, persons are fearful of being laughed at, or people classify you with all kind of description. So men don't readily report incidents of those. So it's a possibility that the number of cases against men could be much higher, but it's a matter of that men don't report most of these cases.
Thank you for contributing that, Elder Garden, because that was going to be one of my follow-up questions. Is it a case where there are more male victims, but they just aren't being reported? So I like the fact that you gave that perspective in terms of they may feel, you know, anxious or apprehensive to do so because of what it may look like to other people who they're reporting to. Now, Rabita had hinted at it. Kayla had said that some she would wish on anyone. And what I think of sexual assault as an umbrella. There are so many things that can come under this category. And I think one thing that comes to my mind when I think of sexual assault is pedophilia. Now, earlier Odin had talked about, is it a case when we think of sexual assault, we're talking about women as the victims or men as the perpetrators. But when you think of pedophilia, there's no socioeconomic status attached, there's no color attached, there is nothing attached. The only thing that is common amongst pedophiles is that there is a sexual objection, gratification with children. So most of the time, when we think of pedophiles, we think of them as men. But women can also be pedophiles. So I'm tying to what you said, Elder Gordon, where you say that there, from your experience, there seem to be more women as victims at being reported than there are men. And I'm sure in the case of pedophiles, you'd see where men would be the go-to person in terms of thought. But I'm branching it out to you guys on the panel. What comes to your mind when you think of pedophile? We'll talk about once. Odin,
All
Kayla.
right. So, well, one of the things that, well, I wanted to give our other panelists a chance to answer before I weighed in. So I call on Kenisha, Kayla, and Rabito to answer.
Kayla.
All right. Well, I think of an adult spraying on a child when I hear the word. Um, Sad to say, we're living in a world where we have to deal with these persons, and I think there is more than um, it comes with a mental effect, because I don't think that any rightful minded person would just see a little child and think that she or he is attractive. So
When
yeah,
you say in their rightful mind, do you mean that they have some underlying mental illness, or their mind is just simply perverted for them to think that? What do you mean?
yes, that is what I think.
Which one? The latter or the former?
I don't want to. I'm not. I all right. I think there's some underlying mental issues.
You leave it.
What about you, Rabito? What is your take on the matter?
Okay, I like the fact that she highlighted that it is when an older person preys on a younger person. It can be both ways, whether it is the female being the older person that preys on the younger person with the male, or the other way around, where the older male preys on the younger person who is the female. Now, another point that she mentioned, which I wanted to touch on, is a part of um, the, um, the mindset, the mindset of the person, because sometimes these persons are struggling with sexual conflicts inside their mind, whether it is that they themselves were once victims of it, so it's hard for them to actually break out of it, and so they feel a sense of emptiness inside of them, and so to fill that void, they try to target younger children. And sometimes if I may add, older people are harder for them to actually get to. But because these young children are naive, they seek to prey on them and victimize them.
Thank you for that contribution, Rabi. So I really appreciated that.
Right, and I see the people in the chat making their contributions, and Edward says that it's making someone sexually uncomfortable based on interaction is sexual harassment, right? And I totally agree with that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask, and I hope that you guys can weigh in on that, is um, in a study that was done by the National Family Planning Board and Satin, it highlighted that men aged 15 to 24 stuck to more traditional standards or viewpoints as it pertains to women, right? And that led a lot of them to have various views on how women should act in terms of receiving sex, in terms of being on the receiving end of sexual harassment, in terms of husband and wife relationships. Can a wife refuse to
Engage in
be
sexual
into
activities with their partner.
right, right, if he is making her uncomfortable by seeing other women, that sort of thing. And so I wanted to ask, with these traditional views, underlying these viewpoints, what does the church, what role does the church play, or how does the church respond to sexual harassment? What is our position? How can we engage in these conversations, to change the outlook?
On the garden, would you like to take that one?
Okay, yes, definitely. All
Okay.
right. On the church's perspective, I think the church would have been doing that in terms of educating people in regards to, values and attitudes, educating young men and men generally that women, girls are not their properties, but that they should be respected and treated with respect. It's about reorienting these minds because as a society, Jamaican society, we tend to look at things different from most other societies. So it's actually reorienting these minds into a different kind of thinking, a different way of thinking, a different way of looking at women, females, not just as
Well,
persons of worth,
But
persons.
Elder Gordon,
Yes.
right? No, I understand you're saying this. So the church should play a role in terms of helping to re-educate people. But what authority does the church have in these things? If the church also is perpetuating, church leaders are also perpetuating
Odin, and let me cut it there because while I do agree with some of the pointers that you have brought across, it is, I think some people may find it a little bit difficult, especially youth, may find it difficult right now, given the recent case where a pastor was found out to be preying on a child. And this is not the first time we are hearing about a case like this. And one would think that the church would be more vocal in declaring their stance against it. But for the most part, it's either hush hush. So, how would you say that the church is instrumental in forming the mindset of people who may have, been victims of this to say, this is wrong. I know what has happened to you. How do we turn away from this? How do we get to a place of, you know, comfort, reconciliation? How do you go about that when they don't even trust the church if they're the ones committing the act?
Well, the church have a responsibility too because you talk about persons wanting to as it were sweep it under the carpet or making it a hush hush situation based on especially if the victim is a child. Yes, based on the definition of the Child Care Protection Act. If the victim is a child, then in no situation does the act make provision for the church, if it is a member of the clergy or if it's a member of the congregation. There's no provision for silence on the matter. Persons are legally obligated once that kind of offense has been committed. Persons are legally obligated to report, and that's something that church members need to be mindful of. And if it's not reported, and it is borne out that persons knew of the situation and tried to cover it up, then that can also land people into serious problem as far as the law is concerned.
So, viewers, you heard that this is also not only one that's serious, but it's also a legal matter. And your points have been agreed with by Sister Juanita Gooden and Elder and Garfield Edwards, who said that the SDA Church has guidelines regarding sexual behavior of our members. And Sister Juanita Gooden pointed out that the church's responsibility is to report any such incident that they are aware of. Ian,
Mhm.
dare I say that the youth
This is
today,
my final question.
sure, go ahead.
No, continue, Grace.
But dare I say that Kayla, Rabita, that the youth today are afraid about coming forward with their cases. Adults who were once children of sexual assault, they're afraid to come out and talk about it. So, what would be our word of advice to a victim, to a friend who knows a victim, to, to someone who has a child that is a victim and the parent don't know that they're a victim? What would you implore them to do?
If I
Can
may
I
go
come in on that?
first.
Sure, you may.
Okay, go.
All right, thank you very much. So,
Hmm.
what I'd advise is that, well, I think you said that if the parents don't know or if the parents know.
Don't know.
So
Oftentimes
if
they
the,
don't.
oftentimes they don't. But if I am a friend and I know, what advice should I give to that person? That's what you're asking.
Yes.
Oh, yes. So I have some friends. They have they were victims, and what I'd advise them to do, well, it's different because, some of these persons are, persons from the family. So they can't go to their family to report that this person, was once assaulting me. I've tried to encourage them to nevertheless report it to their first family and afterward, take it to the station, because this is something that can, affect you throughout your lifetime, and it is not something that you can, easily overcome. And therefore, you're going to need help. You're going to need therapists. You're going to need to go to a psychologist. You need to go to counseling and so forth, because it can cause you to go in serious depression. And where I have a friend, sorry, this one last point where, it causes the person to go on antidepressants to how the person was depressed over the matter.
Did that friend that you're speaking about seek assistance?
Yes, indeed, yes. And the person is now recovering and almost recovered.
Thank you for
Wonderful.
being that friend to, Inside Change. Kayla, would you like to chime in?
I believe that from a tender age, parents, guardians should educate their children about sexual assault. Most times, sex is being treated as a taboo topic. However, I believe if parents, guardians should teach their children what is sex, doesn't mean that they're going to start having it from early. Tell them the disadvantages of sex, tell them the advantages of sex, and tell them what is sexual assault. Let them know what is rape. Teach them what is inappropriate touches from appropriate touches. Have a close, knit relationship with your child or children. Let them feel comfortable communicating with you. Tell them that it is okay to tell me everything, any and everything. And you know that sometimes you can start developing a good communications with your child by she goes to school, come home, ask her, "How was the day? What were you doing today?" If she go over a family member house, ask her what happened, and so on. Well, not only her, him as well.
Yes.
And I believe the parents, guardians should encourage their children not to be afraid to speak up. If somebody do you something, speak up. It doesn't matter who is it, uncle, brother, stepfather, father, sad to say, father as well. let 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 them know that it is inappropriate, it is wrong, and they're supposed to speak up. I was told that when I was 2 years old by my mother, this person that came to my house touched me somewhere inappropriate. That person did not know that I understood that it is wrong. My mother worked with CDA, so she this with instill in me and my sister that certain things is a no-no. So when I told her what happened and she confronted that person, he was shocked. He did not know that a 2-year-old could communicate to her parents that, okay, this you touched me right here. He was so shocked. So this is what I'm saying. Teach your children what is right from one, what from wrong, what is inappropriate, what is appropriate. Teach them that no matter who is it, uncle, brother, anybody at all, even if you're is your aunt, because there's some, sad to say, there's some women that actually prey on children as well.
I understand. Thank you so much, Kayla. So let me sum it up for you all viewers. Rabita is saying that if you know the situation and you're a friend, try and encourage them and push them to get one to tell someone and also to seek help. Elder Gordon let us know that this is also a legal issue and the church has a stance and a responsibility to report these things when they occur. And Kayla let us know that our parents, our guardians, the elderfolk should change the way in which we have sexual conversations with our children to let them know what it is, what are the repercussions of it, and what is the perverted version, i.e. sexual assault. Odin, what's next on our program?
All right. So right now, after that live discussion, we're gonna have some content from Rajni. Brother Rajni is going to do a piece for us. And then after that, we will have our kids praise section, right? Because, we have to involve the children in the start of the new week. They too must have a joyful time in the Lord. And so we're going to have our kids praise section. And after which, we go into our diaspora check-in
So
segment.
stay tuned, viewers, and thank you, panelists, for being here tonight. This is just the beginning of the conversation.